It begins with a question that feels almost unthinkable. What would happen if the United States and Israel decided to strike the most powerful man in Iran? In the quiet hours before dawn, Tehran looks like any other capital city. Lights glow in government buildings. Security convoys move through guarded streets. Beneath that calm surface, however, sits one of the most powerful political positions in the world. At the center of it all is Ali Khamenei. For more than 3 decades, he has stood above Iran's presidents, above parliament, above the visible layers of government. As supreme leader, he commands the armed forces. He oversees the intelligence services. He influences nuclear policy. In Iran's political system, he is the final authority on war and peace. Presidents may change, policies may shift, but the supreme leader remains the constant. To understand why a strike against him would be so explosive, you have to understand the tension that has defined the region for decades. Iran and Israel have existed in a state of deep hostility, often indirect, sometimes overt. Their conflict has played out in cyber warfare, intelligence operations, and proxy confrontations across the Middle East. The United States has its own long history with Iran. Sanctions, broken diplomatic ties, nuclear negotiations, moments of escalation that brought both sides dangerously close to direct confrontation. Each crisis added another layer of mistrust. Now imagine those tensions reaching breaking point. Imagine intelligence reports suggesting a threat that leaders believe cannot be ignored. Military planners begin reviewing options once considered too dangerous to discuss openly. Conversations move from deterrence to action, from warnings to consequences. A strike targeting a supreme leader would not be symbolic. It would be strategic. It would aim to disrupt the very core of Iran's command structure. Such an operation would require extraordinary precision. Months, perhaps years, of intelligence gathering, satellite surveillance tracking movements, signal interceptions confirming locations, layers of verification to eliminate doubt. The margin for error would be close to zero. If it ever happened, it would likely unfold in minutes. Air defenses would activate. Communications networks could be disrupted. Military assets would move into position. And in a single decisive moment, the balance of power in the region could shift. But the strike itself would only be the beginning. The real question is what follows. Iran possesses significant military capabilities. Missile systems capable of reaching regional adversaries. Naval forces positioned near one of the world's most critical oil corridors, the Strait of Hormuz. Allied groups spread across multiple countries. Retaliation would not be delayed. It would be calculated and immediate. Oil markets could react within minutes. A disruption in the Persian Gulf could send global energy prices soaring. Stock exchanges would tremble. Governments would call emergency meetings. Diplomats would rush to contain the fallout. At the United Nations, urgent sessions would be convened. Global powers would issue statements, some condemning the strike, others defending it as an act of preemptive defense. Behind closed doors, leaders would weigh their next moves carefully. Inside Iran, the situation would be just as uncertain. The country has a constitutional mechanism for selecting a new supreme leader through the assembly of experts. But a sudden removal under violent circumstances could create instability. Power structures might consolidate rapidly around senior clerics or military leadership, or internal rivalries could surface. History shows that nations under external attack often unify. Even internal critics may rally behind the flag. A strike meant to weaken a government can sometimes strengthen national resolve. That is the paradox of escalation. Targeting a head of state or a supreme authority is not just a military act. It is a political earthquake. It reshapes alliances. It redraws strategic calculations. It forces every neighboring country to reassess its security posture overnight. And then there is the broader risk. The Middle East does not exist in isolation. Major global powers maintain interests, alliances, and military presence in the region. A conflict between Iran and Israel, with U.S. involvement, could quickly expand beyond a single battlefield. In modern warfare, escalation can move faster than diplomacy. This is why, despite intense hostility, such actions remain extraordinarily rare. The potential consequences are so vast that leaders must consider not only immediate gains but long-term instability. Right now, Ali Khamenei remains in power. The tensions between Iran, Israel, and the United States continue in the familiar rhythm of pressure and restraint. Sanctions are imposed. Statements are made. Military exercises send signals without crossing final lines. But the scenario lingers in strategic discussions because it represents the ultimate escalation. It forces policymakers to confront uncomfortable realities. How far would a nation go to neutralize what it perceives as an existential threat? Where is the red line between deterrence and disaster? In geopolitics, sometimes the most powerful moves are the ones never made. The plans that stay in classified briefings. The strategies prepared but never executed. Yet the possibility alone reveals something important. The global balance of power is not as stable as it appears. It rests on calculations, on restraint, on leaders deciding that the cost of action outweighs the benefit. If that calculation ever changes, the shockwaves would not remain confined to Tehran or Jerusalem or Washington. They would ripple outward through financial markets, energy supplies, military alliances, and everyday lives across continents. And that is why the question matters. Not because it is happening, but because it shows how thin the line can be between tension and transformation. In a world shaped by power, perception, and strategy, even the idea of such a strike reminds us how fragile stability truly is.